In this tutorial, we will be looking at how to customize our controls and how to use shortcuts in order to emulate pressing the home button or the recent apps button. So first things first, we're going to go to our settings menu. We will go down to the controls menu. And once we press on that, we can see there are three options here. We have the general controls. These are things used in general in the app. Primary input is what is used to select items, where by default it is the A button, the enter button, or the numpad enter button. So I went in here I pressed on it to see what it shows. We can change these, but we'll come back to that. Then we have the super primary. That is the button that is used in the prompts. So in this case, it's the start button or control enter or control numpad enter. So in the prompts, if you want to if you want to, or even in these in this options menu, to the other, you can, if you press the start button, it'll be the same as pressing apply. If you press the B button, it'll be the same as pressing cancel, because that is what the cancel input button is. It is the B button, the back button, the escape button. So if I press back, escape, if I swipe in from the right here, it's the same as pressing cancel, because that is the cancel input. If you get a prompt that has a cancel or an OK, the OK will usually be the super primary input, and the cancel button will be the cancel input. And then we have the secondary input. This is the Y button. This is the menu button or the space button. This is the button that brings up the context menu, which over here shows there's no options basically. But that is what the secondary input usually is. And then we have the up, down, left, and right buttons, inputs. These ones by default are the D-pad up, D-pad down, D-pad left, D-pad right. And we'll come back to these in a bit, but we'll see what else is customizable here. We also have in the File Explorer the change go up input, change go back input, change highlight input, and change exit input. The go up input is the button that allows you to go up a folder. So that's different from go back, where go back is you're going back in the history of the folders that you visited, whereas go up is to go to the parent directory of the directory that you're in right now. And by default, go up is set to B, the B button, and then the B button on a controller, not on the keyboard. And then the go back input is by default set to L1 and B. And then we have the highlight input. This is the input that highlights files or folders in the File Explorer. So by default, that is the X button on a controller. And then we have the exit input. This is the input sequence that you will use to exit the File Explorer back into the home menu. By default, this is L1 and R1 button, or the back button, which is the same as swiping from the side of the screen or the Android system back, basically. And then we lastly have the Android system controls. The controls that are used with the Android system. Currently we have two options, the go home input and the view recent apps input. These are what they say they are. They are buttons that will be used to go home if you're in a different app or something. This shortcut will allow you to go home from the app, or the combo will let you see what apps are recently viewed, or what to view the recent apps, what apps are currently running in the background. By default, the go home combination is select and B on a controller, and then the view recent apps is select and X on a controller. These are button X is the square button on a PlayStation controller, and button Y is the triangle button on a controller, on the PlayStation controller. So these mappings are by default for Xbox One controllers, Xbox controllers. Now, to get into how to change these and what these settings mean. So if we want to change, let's say we want to change the cancel input. So we want to change it from button B to, say, L2 or L1, just L1. There you can have multiple things that multiple inputs that do the same action. In our case, we have button B right now, the Android system back, and escape on a keyboard would do the cancel action. So I will change the controller input to be the L1 button. To do that, you can either type the key combo yourself, but you would have to be, it's case sensitive, and you can go to Android's key event documentation to see what different key codes are available, and make sure that you spell it exactly the same, all capitalized, and without key code underscore at the beginning. Or you can also put the number that corresponds to that key code, or you can press the poll button, and then the system will be, Oxshell is now polling for our input, and we can press the key combinations that we want. So you can press as many things as you want, and then once you let go, it will stop polling and it will have that as the input. But I don't want L1, R1, R2, L2 all at the same time to mean go back or cancel. So I'm gonna change it again to L1. And right now it's not applied yet. So in order to apply it, you will have to go down here and press the apply button, or press the super primary input to apply. So I'm going to press the apply button, and now if I press L1, you will see that now I can go back in this menu or other menus using this L1 button. Wherever the cancel input is used, L1 is interchangeable with it. I'm going to change that back because I don't want it to be L1. And then there's extra options as well. So if you see here, on press is checked, and because of that, there are these three text fields in here. So you can either have a key combination be when you press down on the combination, or when you let go of that combination. So for things that need repeating, so when we're here in this menu and we want to go left or right, we want to be able to hold down on the left button and have it just automatically scroll through these items, or the down button, up button. So for when that is the case, we would have on press be checked rather than being unchecked, which would be on release. So then I'll make sure it is checked, and then I will pick the values I want. You can fine tune how frequently the repetition of this button happens. If you don't want any repetition at all, you can input -1 instead of having a start delay. But let's say we want it to go instantly. So we can put 0 here and 0 on the repeat delay. It's for it to repeat every single time, every single frame. So the repeat delay is how long to wait between each time the key is input, and then the start delay is how long to wait after the first input to start the repeat, and the hold time is how long before the action happens. So if you have hold time to 0, then as soon as you press this combination, it will happen once. And then if you have a start delay, then after this delay will the repetition start. And then depending on how much you have the repeat delay set to, every that many milliseconds, it will repeat the input, the action. So if we have no hold time, no start delay time, and no repeat delay, then what will happen now for the up navigation is that it will be much faster than any other. So now if I press up, you see it's instant. It doesn't wait like the other ones. It just goes. Whereas when we press down, it takes a second before it starts repeating. Up, it just instantly goes now. Or we can also, we can also switch it up so that it actually takes, say, 100 milliseconds to happen the first time, and then in order to repeat, it's another, say, 100 milliseconds or 150 milliseconds before it starts repetition. But once it starts the repetition, it's once every 10 milliseconds. And for those wondering, there's in 1 second there is 1,000 milliseconds. So 100 milliseconds is 1/10 of a second. So now we can press apply. We can see how those changes affect the up button. So now if I press up, it takes it 100 milliseconds to happen, and then another 150 milliseconds to start the repeat. But once it repeats, it takes 100 milliseconds between each repeat. So to make it more clear, let's give it higher values. So I'm gonna give this 1 full second before it starts working, and then let's say here, before it starts repeating, it takes 3 seconds, and then for each repeat, it takes half a second for each time it repeats. So let's see how that looks now. So now I'm going to press up. It's taking a whole second. Now it's going to take 3 seconds. And then each one, it's 500 milliseconds. So this way you can fine-tune your repeats. You can fine-tune your presses. And it seems there's a bug that still presses up when you just tap up. I'll fix that later. But also, if you're unhappy with anything that with anything that you've changed, you can always reset it to its default value by pressing reset to default. That will reset the entire input. So if you've added things, removed things, it will give back the entire default. So if it had 3 things as input for that action, by default it'll return those 3 things, and then you can reapply it. So also over here, let's say in the super primary input, let's say you don't want the right control to work with enter, you can remove that from the list. And then now you only have the left control working, and then I don't want also right control the numpad enter, so I'm going to remove that. So those are an option that you can do. Another thing is you have the ordered option. This means that it matters if you press control first or enter first. If you choose not ordered, then it doesn't matter if you press enter first then control, or if you press control first then enter. They'll both do super primary input action. And I believe that's everything with controller customization. Oh, I almost forgot the go home and the view recent apps. Now I prefer these as C and B on my controller, and then I prefer this C and X on my controller. And so now the first time you ever try to use these combinations, you have to use them in the application, because then it will ask you if you want to enable this ability because Android by default has quite some restrictive permissions on who can go home or who can view recent apps, or like which apps can request to do that, because that is a security issue if any app can do that without your permission. So it's Google has or Android has this as an accessibility feature. And so in order to use these features, you will have to enable the accessibility service for this app. You can entirely not use these features if you don't want them, but I like to have these features, so I'm going to press continue. And then this will take you to the settings where the accessibility settings of your Android system. Then you can pick Oxshell here, and then you can choose to turn it on. And then one odd gimmick is that you cannot press home here. You have to go back here in order to go back to the Oxshell. But now from here, if you press one of these combos, so if you press the recent apps combo, you will see the recent apps. Or if you press the home, well, let's first open something. Let's say we open SNES. And now I want to go home. I can press that combo. It'll take me home. Or if I'm in SNES emulator, I press that combo. The recent apps combo, now it'll show me the recent apps. And from here I can clear all. Excuse me. So you have quite a bit of customizability, but you got to make sure that the combos that you put, be careful not that they don't conflict with other apps what they're using. That's one thing to watch out for. But other than that, in the future I will likely add more things that you can do for the Android system. But these can come in very handy. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching.